Is James Harden the best trade asset in NBA history? What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Transaction History, where last week we broke down Paul George and how he's helped set up the future of the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Moving into today's episode, episode 2, we'll be diving into the transaction history of current LA Clippers guard James Harden. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment who you want to see next on Transaction History. Let's dive into this. James Harden spent 2 years at Arizona State, earning consensus All American honors before declaring for the 2009 NBA Draft. James Harden went on to be selected third overall to the OKC Thunder, joining a young core of Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and Jeff Green, who had just moved to Oklahoma City the season prior. Harden helped OKC reach the playoffs in his rookie year, serving as the team's sixth man. Across 3 seasons, Harden would improve year by year as the Thunder began to establish themselves as one of the best young teams in the association. The Thunder would lose to the eventual NBA champions Dallas Mavericks in the 2011 playoffs, but would make the finals in the 2012 playoffs and fall to the Miami Heat. Harden would win Sixth Man of the Year that season, averaging nearly 17 points per game. While Harden was emerging as a star for OKC, so was their 2008 24th overall pick Serge Ibaka. When it came time to pay Harden's rookie extension, the offer was short of what he was looking for. Factor in the experience from the 2012 Olympics and what he heard from other Olympians, Harden decided it was time for him to leave and seek greener grass. On October 27, 2012, the Oklahoma City Thunder and Houston Rockets agreed to a deal that would send James Harden and three players to the Rockets for a package centered around 2012 12th overall pick Jeremy Lamb, Kevin Martin, and multiple draft selections. Houston was looking to make a splash as they were completely overhauling their roster from a season ago, trading away Kyle Lowry and letting go of Luis Scola and Goran Dragic. Houston didn't know it yet, but they would end up acquiring one of the most dominant offensive players of all time. Harden would go on to spend the next 8 seasons of his career in Houston, creating an MVP resume for himself as one of the greatest offensive players in NBA history. Across those 8 seasons, he would average nearly 30 points and 8 assists per game, while finishing top 10 in MVP voting each year. Despite his otherworldly numbers, he'd only capture one MVP award, coming in the 2017-18 campaign. While Harden's stretch in Houston was impressive individually, he wasn't able to reach the NBA Finals, only reaching the conference finals twice. After two head coaches and multiple supporting casts, Harden decided his time in Houston was over with and he was ready to move on. On January 16, 2021, the Houston Rockets agreed to a 4-team trade that would send James Harden to the Brooklyn Nets to unite him with All-Stars Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving to form arguably the best offensive trio in NBA history on paper. Heading back to Houston, the Rockets would receive Victor Oladipo, Dante Exum, Rodions Kurucs, and plethora of draft capital. Also included in the trade were the Indiana Pacers and Cleveland Cavaliers, as Cleveland walked away with their center of the future Jared Allen, while the Pacers swapped their injury-riddled star Victor Oladipo for Karis LeVert. With the new trio formed in Brooklyn, people began to wonder who could stop them. Despite the buzz around forming the Big Three in Brooklyn, Harden would only end up being a part of one playoff run with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, coming in the 2021 NBA playoffs. However, it was a playoff that saw both Kyrie Irving and James Harden battle through injuries, as the team would end up losing in 7 games to the Milwaukee Bucks in the Eastern Conference semifinals. The Nets lost 2 of the 3 games when Harden was out injured against the Bucks, and Harden's 22-point Game 7 performance saw him shoot less than 30% of the field. Harden would play 44 games in Brooklyn the following season before again requesting to be traded out. On February 10, 2022, the Brooklyn Nets and Philadelphia 76ers agreed to a deal that would send James Harden and Paul Millsap to the Sixers in exchange for Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round draft selections. This trade would officially end the Big Three era in Brooklyn and would also help the Sixers escape the Ben Simmons situation as he was dealing with a back injury. The trade would pair James Harden alongside one of the most talented bigs in the NBA in Joel Embiid, as both would try to change the narrative about their lack of playoff success. Harden would appear in just 21 games with the Sixers after being traded that season, helping lead the franchise to the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. Tyrese Maxey, Embiid, and Harden were able to take down the Raptors in 6 games, moving on to face the Miami Heat in the second round. However, things didn't go to plan for the Sixers, as Jimmy Butler would get revenge on his old team while Embiid missed 2 games of that series. With Tyrese Maxey still emerging as a star, it only made sense to run it back with the same core for another season. Harden would go on to lead the league in assists in the 2022-23 season, but the 2023 playoffs would see the Sixers lose to the Boston Celtics in 7 games in the Eastern Conference semis. Despite both averaging over 22 points per game, Harden and Embiid struggled, and yet again couldn't reach a conference finals. Now with 2 failed playoff runs under his belt in Philadelphia and a deteriorating relationship with GM Daryl Morey, Harden decided to force his way out yet again to head back to the West. On November 1st, 2023, the Philadelphia 76ers, Los Angeles Clippers, and Oklahoma City Thunder agreed to a 3-team deal that would send James Harden and PJ Tucker to the Los Angeles Clippers to unite him with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. In exchange, the Clippers would send Nicholas Batum, Robert Covington, KJ Martin, Marcus Morris, and draft picks to the Sixers. The Oklahoma City Thunder would receive the right to swap first-round picks in 2027 with the Clippers. The 76ers would walk away with future cap relief and a plethora of role players, while the Clippers would look to capitalize on their George and Leonard window. Flash forward to today, and the James Harden experiment hasn't really netted the results the Clippers wanted. While Harden was productive in his first season as a Clipper last year, the playoff success still remains nowhere to be found. The Clippers lost in the 2024 playoffs to the Dallas Mavericks in the first round, a series where they only got 2 lackluster games from a hurt Kawhi Leonard. The Clippers would go on to lose Paul George this past offseason as he departed to join the Philadelphia 76ers, essentially swapping spots with James Harden. Now with Kawhi still injured and the Clippers looking towards a bottom of the conference finish, the future of James Harden seems unknown. Now with James Harden's career moving into the late stages, it's time to take a step back and look at those teams that traded Harden, what they were able to turn those assets into. Let's start off with the OKC Thunder. Let's start off with the main piece of this trade, Jeremy Lamb, as he played 3 lackluster seasons for the Oklahoma City Thunder before being sent to the Charlotte Hornets for Luke Riddenhauer, who was traded days later. Kevin Martin, he would go on to play 1 season where he was a talented bench scorer for the Thunder, but ended up being traded that following offseason for an overseas player who never came to the NBA, and essentially a salary dump. Alex Abrines was selected with the 2013 second-round pick, as he was a reserve for OKC for 3 years, appearing in 174 games. He was later waived in February of 2019. Mitch McGary was selected with the 2014 first-round pick, as he was a reserve for OKC across 2 years, appearing in 52 games. He went on to be waived in October of 2016. The main piece from this trade haul was OKC's selection using the 2013 first-round pick, where they selected Pitt center Steven Adams. Across 7 years, Adams started 466 games and established himself as one of the most physically imposing players in the association. However, in November of 2020, the team opted to part ways and trade him in a 4-team deal to the New Orleans Pelicans. In return, the Thunder would receive a 2023 first, George Hill, Kendrick Williams, and 2027 and 2029 protected first from the Houston Rockets. Oklahoma City has also received other players in that deal, but they were all waived. As for their current hauls as of today from the James Harden trade, they are able to turn that 2023 first with some additional assets in the French wing Ousmane Dieng. Otherwise, Kendrick Williams, who's been a solid reserve after coming over from that Steven Adams trade, and they have 2027 first from Denver and 2029 first from Denver due to the George Hill trade, and a 2026 second. Now moving over to Houston, they were able to acquire quite a bit of assets for the All-NBA guard at the time of their trade. Starting off with Victor Oladipo, he played 20 games in Houston before getting traded for 2 expiring contracts. Dante Exum, on the other hand, would get waived shortly after that trade. However, where it gets interesting is Roddy Nkurix. Despite being a lesser player in the deal, he'd be traded on down the line with PJ Tucker and some draft capital for DJ Augustine, DJ Wilson, a 2021 first, and a 2023 first. That 2021 first would end up becoming Josh Christopher, who's no longer on the team, but the 2023 first would be traded with Eric Gordon in exchange for John Wall and another 2023 first that ended up becoming Cam Whitmore. Therefore, their current take-home assets from the in 2024-2025 are Tari Eason, Cam Whitmore, Reed Shepard, a 2025 pick swap via OKC or Phoenix, a 2027 first via Phoenix, a 2027 pick swap via Brooklyn, and a 2029 first via Dallas and or Phoenix. Now moving on to the Brooklyn Nets, Seth Curry would go on to play 80 games across 2 seasons before signing a free agency deal with the Dallas Mavericks in the 2023 offseason. Andre Drummond would play 24 games the rest of that year before signing a free agency deal with the Chicago Bulls. However, the 2023 first-round pick they acquired, they would trade to acquire Royce O'Neal, who they would then later flip to acquire Keita Bates-Diop, Jordan Goodwin, a 2026 second, and 2028 and 2029 seconds via the Memphis Grizzlies. As of today, their current assets are Ben Simmons, a 2026 second via OKC, a 2027 first via the Philadelphia 76ers, top 8 protected, and 2028 and 2029 seconds via the Memphis Grizzlies. While the Sixers weren't able to get anything crazy in the James Harden deal, they were able to get a slew of assets that they can look forward to. Starting off with Nicholas Batum, he played 57 games with the Sixers before leaving to sign a free agency deal to go back to the LA Clippers this past offseason. Robert Covington would play 26 games, and he currently now is a free agent. Marcus Morris, though, would play 37 games before being traded with the 2024 and 2029 seconds alongside Furkan Korkmaz and another 2029 second for Buddy Hield, who played the rest of the season in Philadelphia before being traded this offseason in a sign-and trade for a 2031 second via the Dallas Mavericks. Today, the Sixers can walk away with KJ Martin, a 2028 first via the Clippers, a 2029 pick swap via the Clippers top 3 protected, and a 2031 second via the Dallas Mavericks from the James Harden deal. When now looking at the current assets from their respective James Harden trades, there's no doubt the Rockets are clear winners. While they did trade Harden during the peak of his playing days, they were able to turn 3 of their draft picks into promising young players in Cam Whitmore, Tari Eason, and Reed Shepard, and still have a plethora of picks going into the future. The Sixers earned the second spot since they were able to acquire 2 future firsts from the Clippers that currently look like they could be lottery selections. Earning the third spot is the Brooklyn Nets, who take a hit since Ben Simmons has been a shell of himself in Brooklyn. However, they do have a top 8 protected first from the Sixers to look forward to, but it will likely be outside the lottery if things go as planned. As for the Thunder coming in last, there really wasn't much for them to work with from their initial trade. Steven Adams was the only player that returned any assets from the deal, and Ousmane Dieng and Kendrick Williams haven't really been above average role players. They do have a top 5 first from the Nuggets to look to in 2027, but the way Nikola Jokic is currently playing, that pick probably won't be much. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see another episode of Transaction History. Cheers.